Some DC villains are too twisted, terrifying, and downright disturbing to ever make it to the big screen. From villains who commit crimes beyond imagination to supernatural horrors that would make Pennywise look tame, these twisted maniacs are trapped in the pages of comics, for now. But why won't DC bring them to the big screen? Let's find out. We'll begin with the nightmarish entity known as the Upside Down Man. He embodies the ultimate cosmic terror, an existence so unnatural that it's best left undisturbed. At once both an absurdly impossible foe and a chillingly grotesque figure, his form is a crawling nest of flies, maggots, and roaches, making him a living nightmare. Though entirely fueled by magic, his powers revolve around the gruesome manipulation of flesh and bone, turning reality itself into a horror show. DC has explored beings of dark magic before, but the Upside Down Man stands apart from others like the Great Darkness, an entity of pure malevolence. Unlike the Great Darkness, which represents objective evil, the Upside Down Man relishes the act of terrifying those unfortunate enough to cross his path. Once a fairly unremarkable villain, Dr. Destiny's most notable offense before the crisis was drugging the Justice League. While unquestionably sinister, it was nothing compared to the horror he unleashed in his later form as John Dee when he came into possession of the Materiopticon, an artifact infused with the power of Lord Morpheus. With the ability to manifest his dreams into reality, Dee's twisted imagination took him down a truly depraved path. The Materiopticon ruby passed in and out of Dee's hands, initially returned to its true owner, only for Dee to lose it again to the Red King, now fractured and weakened after a brutal clash with the Justice League. Even without his supernatural abilities, John Dee is a deeply unsettling figure who is obsessed with exposing the darkness lurking within ordinary people. Gotham has dealt with out-of-control plant life before, but Mr. Bloom is a danger unlike any the city has faced. Unlike Floronic Man and Poison Ivy, whose motives are rooted in environmental causes, Bloom has no such higher purpose. In fact, as far as readers know, he doesn't even have a real name. The first Mr. Bloom was a disgraced scientist who created seeds capable of granting superhuman abilities to regular people. One unidentified test subject fused with a seed, slaughtered the rest, and transformed into the emaciated, sword-fingered predator known as Mr. Bloom, nearly consuming Gotham in the process. He's like an invasive weed, feeding off the life around him and proving nearly impossible to eradicate. Many people find clowns and dolls unsettling, often disturbed by their blank expressions and eerie resemblance to life. The extreme fear of dolls and other lifeless humanoid figures is known as pediophobia, and it is the foundation of the doll maker's terror. Two versions of this character are particularly disturbing. Anton Schott, the son of Toyman, was a deeply disturbed child fixated on a grown-up reporter, sending her dolls to represent each child he abducted. His crimes were horrific, but they pale in comparison to Baron Mathis, whose cannibalistic father shaped him into a monster of rare and terrifying cruelty. Mathis's twisted doll-maker lineage includes grotesque, disfigured beings stitched together from the dead, making him the embodiment of a waking nightmare. Cornelius Stirk, also known as Fear, is what Scarecrow might be if he had the actual ability to induce terror, along with an insatiable craving for human flesh. His presence is deeply unsettling. His cruelty knows no bounds, and his powers rank among the most disturbing in DC's roster of villains. Yet no one truly knows how Fear gained his abilities. When he was first sent to Arkham at 16 for attempted murder, he wasn't even a meta-human. Cornelius Stirk's usual approach involves lulling his victims into a false sense of security by telepathically disguising himself as someone they trust. Once their guard is down, he maximizes their terror to harvest fear-laced bodily fluids before ultimately taking their heart as his final prize. Grant Morrison, one of the minds behind Professor Pig, once described him by saying, "Professor Pig isn't from another world. He's from here and he's very, very sick." Drawing inspiration from the myth of Pygmalion and real-life unethical animal experiments, Pig works with living flesh and blood to craft his Dollatrons. The details of his gruesome process are beyond imagination. Professor Pig sees himself as an artist, and his gruesome work follows the unpredictable rhythm of an obsessive sculptor. There's no real pattern to his actions, nor is there any grand purpose. Pig is driven purely by his urge to inflict suffering and to sculpt people into grotesque versions of his own twisted vision. He is a chilling fusion of real-world horrors and cold, unfeeling mythology, designed to be one of Gotham's most unsettling figures. When it comes to John Constantine's most terrifying enemies, choosing just one is nearly impossible. Demons are naturally frightening, but the monsters lurking in the pages of Hellblazer are often rooted in reality, drawing from the worst parts of human nature. They force readers to confront just how susceptible they might be to such evils. Unlike the traditional, fantasy-driven demons that superheroes typically battle, entities like Norfothing and Maenamoth arise from humanity's most common fears and desires. Everyone eats, and intimacy is a fundamental part of human connection, but Hellblazer demons pervert these basic needs into nightmarish distortions of reality. Imagine the most barbaric and inhumane act a person could commit. Whatever came to mind, Anton Arcane has likely done it, probably with the help of his monstrous unmen and fueled by his disturbing obsession with his niece. He has served as the avatar of rot, a living embodiment of destruction and a relentless force of pure malice. On a whim, he worked for Hitler, and throughout his life he has tormented, abused, or disfigured nearly every member of his family. And then there's Anton Arcane's absolutely nightmarish appearance. At first, he looked like nothing more than an unsettling old man, but after numerous deaths, he transformed into an 8-foot-tall monstrosity of writhing flesh, complete with spider-like limbs. As if his depravity wasn't enough, his most terrifying ability is arguably his power to control minds and possess others. Among the Sinestro Corps' most disturbing members, the alien crone Crib had one of the most unsettling ways of spreading fear. She preyed on Green Lanterns who had recently started families, slaughtering the parents and stealing their children, whom she carried in a grotesque, sack-like pouch on her back. Crib had the ability to secrete a mysterious liquid that took control of anyone it touched. Once inside, the substance fused with the victim's DNA, allowing Crib to manipulate their mind like a puppet. Most disturbingly, she could produce this horrifying liquid from her own body in the form of breast milk. Then there's Carl Hellfern, a deranged scientist-turned-supervillain better known as Dr. Death. In the New 52, his character was reimagined as a scientist whose bone regeneration experiments backfired, warping him into a grotesque abomination. Hellfern had once worked for Wayne Enterprises, where he developed a formula designed to restore lost bone tissue, though the results were far worse than he ever imagined. Unfortunately, the formula came with horrifying consequences. It caused bones to harden and grow uncontrollably, warping the body until the skeletal structure became so deformed that it ultimately collapsed under its own weight. After being dismissed from Wayne Enterprises, Hellfern was later recruited by the Riddler, who saw his twisted genius as the perfect tool for his scheme to seize control of Gotham. In the end, Hellfern became a victim of his own creation, succumbing to the very effects of his deadly serum. He believed that true strength came from shutting off all emotion and severing any connection to morality, convinced that by doing so, a person could shield themselves from all the pain life had to offer. Would you be interested in a horror-inspired DC film featuring these terrifying villains? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.